Okay, welcome to Brave Indigenous Conversations with Joan Jack. So happy that you're here listening or watching, whichever way you're joining us or whenever you're joining us. I always begin every podcast by reading this piece of writing that I found that really reflects how I see the world. It's called Brave Space. Together we will create brave space because there is no such thing as safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. That was written by Mickey Scott B. Jones, and she's a Black woman who I did a little bit of research about her, and she's gone to the spirit world. But I'm so glad she left that piece of truth because it resonates with me.
You're
So
right
this
about
morning,
that.
yeah. So
Very
this
good.
morning, I'm super thrilled to have Becky BIGCANOE with us, and I'd like to just start like I always do and invite her to introduce herself. Go ahead, Becky.
Okay. Thanks, Joan. I'm just beyond thrilled to be here with you. I'm Becky BIGCANOE, and I live on Georgina Island. We're Chippewa tribe or Anishinaabe people. We live here on Lake Simcoe, and I think most of my journey began when I started working for the water, and I did some water walks around Lake Simcoe. And from there, I've done a few more activism type things. I staged a walk with Gladys Raddick to bring attention to the missing and murdered Indigenous women issue. That was in 2013, I believe, just before the national inquiry was announced. And so that has proceeded, and we know what happened with that, but that's another story.
Hmm.
But all along, my main passion has been all about our housing, the housing that we have to, such a big crisis to tackle. And I've been working at it for a while. It feels like things are just starting to get going.
Hmm.
So I don't know what else you want to know about me. I'm a grandmother.
Yeah, tell
of
me
three.
about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a beautiful two grandsons. One's going on 20 and one's going on 12. Just awesome boys. They live up in Rama First Nation.
Hmm.
And then I have a beautiful little granddaughter who's 6 years old.
Hmm.
I have a son and a daughter. They're both very, very accomplished in life, doing what they love.
Hmm.
So I'm happy about that. And yeah, I'm surrounded by family and cousins and everybody here at Georgina Island. And I have to say, we're doing pretty well here. We have to take a water ferry, but it can fit 18 cars.
Wow.
And ever since it's been in our lives have gotten a lot easier and better. Yeah.
This is so interesting, even where you live. Like, how did you get off the island before the ferry?
Oh yeah, it was perilous at times. I think there's a memorial plaque up inside the passenger cabin that tells about how many people we lost over the years
Hmm.
in trying to get across Lake Simcoe. At one time here where I live, I look out in the bay here that we're crossing, and they say this bay was so shallow, and it was a vast field of monomen at one time.
Mm.
And then they built
For those who don't know, monomen is wild rice.
Yeah. Oh, it's a wonderful plant. And when they built the Trent Severn Waterway, which connects like the St. Lawrence River all the way up to the Great Lakes, it flooded. It flooded the area, and we lost all our wild rice. But before that, you could almost walk across. They used to drive cattle across and do logging and stuff like that. So now we need a big ferry boat.
So the need for the ferry was created by development, so it was artificially created.
Yeah. And because of its capabilities, our First Nation has been, really growing, thriving, and we have a very large cottage industry here now.
Oh.
Yeah.
On the island or on your reserve, or what do you mean?
On the reserve, yeah. They lease lease lots to them, and they build nice big cottages, and they fill up the boat on Friday. So I don't
Wow.
go to town on Friday.
That's crazy, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah, the world is so big, the world is so big. So
yeah.
how many people are in your First Nation living on that island approximately?
It's always been around 200, and
Oh,
yet our membership, I think, is getting up to about 800 or so.
yeah,
The most live off,
yeah.
and then
Wow.
I think it's like that on a lot of First Nations. The proportion of people who live off is often higher than those who live on the reserve.
Yeah,
And that's just, one of the results of a lack of housing,
yeah.
lack of services.
So before we go into the housing, I want to segue a little because I know I've spent a little bit of time visiting you, Becky. So I know you're like me. We have lots of opinions about things.
Yeah.
And so,
Lots of ideas too.
yeah, lots of, oh, totally lots of, I live in possibility.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I wanted to invite you to say something about the National Inquiry. And, you said that's another story. Let's talk about that for just a minute or so.
Yeah. Yeah. I really feel like many people were very glad that it happened, but in hindsight and looking at it, it looked like we were just being used for
Oh.
political gain.
Hmm.
When Trudeau was Mr. Smiley Man. Sorry if I'm not
Mm.
allowed to say anything like that, but
This is
he was putting out this persona of really caring at that time, and the inquiry was conducted, and it went and visited everybody and everything like that. But the recommendations that came out of it, nobody's picked that up at all.
yeah.
And I think the Truth and Reconciliation, which affects so many of us, has been somewhat rolled out, and we got a day coming up on Saturday that we're going to mark that day. But nothing like that has happened for the missing and murdered women.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
really breaks my heart.
Yeah.
For
Our
the
women.
women are the backbone of the nation. We're the heart of the nation as well, right?
Yeah. And we continue to lose our women. And
Yeah.
not just our women, Indigenous people, period, continue to
Period.
go missing and murdered. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's not good.
All the same conditions exist that existed prior, to the
Yeah.
inquiry.
Let's talk a little bit about the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because you drew a distinction there between at least after the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, there has been some movement. So on September 30th is a National Day of Remembering and Reconciliation.
Right.
Oh, what are your thoughts about that? Like, I'm wearing my orange shirt. Oh, wrong side. I'm wearing my orange shirt pin. I've got some earrings on. I got my nails orange.
Yeah, you see a lot of people really getting into the spirit of it, and I think it's beautiful to see some of the different efforts that have been made to
Yeah.
bridge those gaps.
Yeah.
They really were large, and they're getting smaller as the
Mm.
general public understanding grows about what it was that the federal policy put us through.
And
And
still does,
yeah, yeah,
you and I could talk about
exactly.
that for days
Our
too.
apocalypse happened like a a couple of centuries ago.
Hmm.
We were just sort of getting our feet under us now
Yeah.
again.
I
Hmm.
remember last year in Winnipeg, I rode my Harley in the march, and
Hmm.
there was a few of us riders at the front, maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 or so of us.
I think
And
that's so boss, Joan. I love that.
excuse me, I have a bit of a tickle. Yeah, I rode in my 20s and then stopped riding, while I was raising my children and all that. And I started riding again when I was 51. So that's about 11, 12 years ago now. But anyway,
Mm,
last year we had about 10 riders or so, but they had the flags at the front, flags and elders. They had that truck with a drum. And then they had some horses, because some of our people are from First Nations who ride. They had the
mhm.
horses, then they had the iron horses right behind. But last year, our motorcycles made so much noise that a couple of the horses got really upset. So we're going to be bringing up the tail end of the march. And last year, and that's coming on Saturday. And last year there were thousands, I don't know the exact number, but it was incredible to see the sea of orange, just a
Mm,
sea of orange for maybe 10 city blocks. And it was so good to see so many non-Indigenous people joining us.
yeah,
And, there is some criticism out there now that, people Canadians need to do more than just wear an orange shirt, or a red shirt. Um, but I just want to end on this. I don't know if you've noticed in Ontario, but in Manitoba here, anyway, in the Winnipeg area, Tim Hortons has created an Orange Shirt Day donut, and they're donating 100% of the profits to the IRS Survivors Society. And I was
yeah,
like, now that's a next step. That's going, give us some of your money. That's going
yeah.
beyond, so we
With
can
some Jonia on the line, man.
help rebuild, and we can help
Mm,
heal, and you can be a part of that.
I
Yeah,
would like to. Yeah.
yeah. Did you notice that in Ontario, or the Tim
Yes,
Hortons?
actually, I went in the Timmy's yesterday, or yeah, and I saw that orange donut. But I've gone
Amazing.
completely carnivore. I will
Me,
not eat any
yeah.
carbs.
I might buy some and give them away to some people who do
Yeah.
eat, but I don't eat them. I try not
When
to.
they put a stamp on a steak for me, I'll eat a steak.
And there's an orange toothpick on the steak.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about. I want to give you space, create space for you to share, your life's passion around housing. Like, tell your story. Like, start at the beginning. Like, you built your own home on your reserve in your
Yes,
community. Talk
I
about
chose to
that.
build it out of straw bales. In fact, I just was talking to a neighbor who said, I was just down at Don Howard's, and he says, oh, Georgina Island. Eh? He said, I sold straw bales to a lady over there 20 years ago. She had to build her house. And I was like, I know exactly how many bales it took, too, 243. And they
Huh.
just do the perimeter of my house, right? So that's very well insulated, has these lovely deep windowsills for the cat to lay on. And my house is always nice temperature, and I've never had a problem with mold.
Wow.
And you see, when I've looked at the situation of housing, I've seen it again and again. It's all about that. And recently, like I approached the University of Toronto, they have a program called Reconciliation Through Engineering. And that's the level I'd love to work at, Let's get down to the brass tacks and see what things are made of and what can we make better. So they agreed to do a program with me where I wanted to study, if you don't have straw in your area, do you have something that can be molded into a block so houses can be built from that, a natural material? So they agreed to take it on. And although we didn't get the grant we were heading for, which was the supply chain challenge out of the federal government, they got a CANOT grant.
Hmm.
And with that money, they went and started working with the Prince Albert Grand Council.
Hmm.
And that's a bunch of First Nations together who, work together so they can maximize their efficiency, I guess.
Hmm.
So we met in Saskatoon, and we had 2 days of encounter of like, let's just talk about housing. And they were all like, we never get this chance to just sit and talk about what do we have in common, what are our unique circumstances, how are we handling it, how is the federal government aiding or putting roadblocks in our way. It was just awesome to have all that experience, and we did art and shared stories in order to illustrate it. So that project is going to keep going to do
Are
this
you?
research. I'm sorry, I'm just having to get off the
That's
boat
okay.
now.
That's okay. This is real. This is real life. So Becky,
Yeah,
for those of you listening on Spotify, Becky's now driving her car off of the ferry
it's gonna clunk.
um, onto Manitoulin Island,
Georgina Island.
Regina Island.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, you're not
Uh-huh.
losing any signal.
Good. That's
I
good.
wonder, I wonder how it's going to be when you get off the ferry.
Well, I'm really close to the ferry, my home, right? And I have
Okay.
Wi-Fi, and my phone will pick it up as soon as I get in the house.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
No problem. So we'll jump around. We're just visiting. So let's go
Yeah.
back to your straw bale house. Like, talk more about that first, because then I want to hear about your new organization. So
Okay. Well, I think I got to
like,
give credit to this little house for actually giving me anything like a career, right?
huh,
Because I just started to believe in it so much and talk about it so much. So, first of all, I said, I'm an advocate for natural building.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it makes me realize that back in the day when our grandparents and great grandparents built themselves cabins, built for themselves, that's
Yeah.
natural building, right?
Yeah.
And it was when the advent of the federale interference and all that, and forcing us to do building code and blah blah blah,
Hey,
and then underfunding.
Can you turn your camera around just for a second and show us your straw bale
Yeah.
house?
Let me step back in the driveway a bit here.
Okay.
Can I actually change the?
I don't know. Never mind. We can see. We can see. So it looks like a regular wall. I thought it would.
Yeah, it's mortared with lime plaster.
Oh,
After a few cracks, but nothing that
wow, it's beautiful.
I want to bring it to the kitchen even.
Okay, you built it over 20 years ago.
Yeah,
that's crazy. And a straw bale house could be in any kind of weather conditions.
Oh yeah, it's the best for standing up to weather.
Wow,
for sure.
I see you got
That's
wood
crazy.
heat there. Yeah, beautiful. Your home's so beautiful. Okay, when you get seated, we'll continue the conversation.
Go on it.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's darker in here. Put a light on.
That's okay. That's okay. So when you get situated, I want to hear about the new organization you co-founded. So, and what you're up to. The website's beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, we got the famous Joe Ketchigo to work on that for us, and no regrets, man. He's good.
Nice.
Pour a bit of coffee.
That's okay. I get your coffee.
So yeah, I think it was in the early part of the pandemic. Like prior to that, we were working on it, and I have a partner who's she was in the corporate world, lawyer, all that. Mm-hmm. And I was saying to her, I want to make like a simple declaration that this is what we're going to do. Like, I'm not one to always go ask for permission from, I call them the federales, right? So
we don't need permission.
Once the pandemic happened, we were like, well, it's really hard to tell what the future is going to be now. So let's just go ahead and see if we can actually incorporate this thing.
Yeah.
And what we did was we put in our application that we want the definition of conservation to be defined by our own elders. So the Indigenous Circle of Elders actually did that. And they said that true conservation of land is when you teach people how to interact with that land in a good way. So that's what we put on our application. So that is how we now can conduct our business. Whereas if we just went for conservation trust, that means you fence it in and nobody gets to go there, right?
Yeah.
So the reason for that is, like, we know we need land. As we were talking earlier, most of us live off reserve now.
Yeah.
And there's a whole pile of people who, through no fault of their own, got enfranchised earlier on. So there's like a lot of landless people. So that's those people that we're thinking of when we think of, if we get a land donation in a particular area, we go to the local people and we say, well, who are your grandmothers? Will the grandmothers come out? Will they form a circle to govern and steward this land, knowing what the community needs and how the land needs, right? They're the repository of the knowledge. And so that's what we're starting to get going. And I'm so happy. Yeah.
So the land, the legal in the federales, as you said, in the federale law. The ownership of because we all know as Indigenous people, it's our land. I mean, Japanese people come from Japan, German people come from German. We come from here, so this is our land. This is where we came from, and still are. And so, but the title of the land, so what you're looking for is people who want to donate land.
Legacy landholders.
They will donate it to your nonprofit, and your nonprofit holds it in trust
and
invites the grandmothers of that land area to come forth and form like a governing body to help
Yes.
make sure the land is um, loved in the right way, in a good
Yeah.
way. Ah,
Reacquaint our youth and our men, all of us. Look at
mm,
that land. What do we need as a community, and what can that land provide for us?
mm,
So it could be a food security program. It could be a youth development program. It could be just pure spirituality. It's up to the people of that area. That's
yeah.
not our job to dictate.
Wow.
So
You're such a big thinker, Becky. You're such a big thinker. I remember when we
we
had this.
call it hashtag land back in a good way.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
We can
Yeah,
actually give
sure.
people tax receipts for that, right? So
Right.
that's what entices
Yeah,
the
for sure.
donor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I remember when we had this conversation about a year ago or whatever. We're always resistant to engage in the colonial processes, but often we have no other choice. If we
That's
don't,
right.
what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Our land and our land has been captured by the
Yes,
common law.
separated, pulled apart.
But in our in the totalness of us, our land and our people are captured by the Canadian common law. So it's like we're in prison in there. And
Yeah.
our own Indigenous law, while it still exists, doesn't exist in that space except for fight after fight after fight. So what you're choosing to do is go forth and make the best of it,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Mm.
I can't believe, like, I know it's happening across the country, but I have one particular friend in the northern area of Ontario where they're working to put in the Ring of Fire, right? And
Yeah.
those, they're seriously underfunded. But what's happening is it's like the Hatfields and McCoys, like the people
Mhm.
are just fighting each other, and
Mhm.
nothing is being, like, there's no solution that
Mm.
I can see. So
Mm.
I'm trying to
You
get
know what
into the
else happened?
CCAN, the shipping container
Yeah, yeah.
company.
CCAN, yeah.
Yeah, I formed a company so I can work with a manufacturer and a not-for-profit, try and offer a solution.
Mm.
So I'll be working
What
on
would
that
you be
for the
doing
next
with
little
the
while.
pecans? What would you be doing with the pecans?
Turning them into habitats,
Yeah, small houses.
adequate. Yeah, we want them to be fully equipped, fully furnished, and everything. Some of the other things they're dealing with in the smaller remote communities are like infestations of bed bugs and other pests.
Mhm.
So it'd be
Yeah.
nice to be able to leave that all behind, come into something fresh and new and clean. We want them to have water filtration on site,
Mhm.
satellite hookup available.
Mhm.
Um, I want to pioneer using a less costly. It comes out of Earthship Biotecture, which is worth everybody's time to go and check out that website.
What
Earth,
is it? Just give us the website.
Earth. Can you write it down, Joan?
Sure, I can.
Earthship
Yeah.
Bio Texture, TECTURE.
Okay.
I'm
So I
gonna get
guess
a hold of Michael.
is it
It,
.com or dot whatever at the end?
I think it's .com. It'll
Okay.
come up.
My
It'll
friend
come
Lynn is watching. Hey, Lynn, can you search that, please, and then put it in the comments? A woman I went to law school with like 31 years ago is still one of my best friends, and she's a
Awesome.
loyal supporter. She'll find that and put it in the comments. And if she
Okay.
doesn't, if she stepped away, I'll do it. Yeah. She
Okay.
said, okay.
Thank you. Well, what Michael did was pioneer of like if you go to the /wastewater page, he explains it all very elegantly that you can basically gather garbage from your community and some thick black plastic and develop a septic system that actually works with the land
Oh, hell.
and cuts the cost. Because when I built my house 20 years ago, I couldn't believe the enormous cost of the septic system was almost more than the house. And that has
Wow.
to be dealt with, right, in a different way. So I'm going to go through the motions and find out how do I get these kind approved. And I'll be getting in touch with Michael Reynolds, the inventor.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
So
need a
have
little bit
you,
more outside the box thinking in these
I know.
situations,
I love it. You're
That's my
amazing.
belief.
You're amazing. So, where with your organization, I did put the link to your organization in the comments already.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, for sure. And the guy that I pay a little bit of money, well, it's a few. Anyway, I pay somebody to help me with my podcast, and we'll have the link to these links will be all in the notes when I ever get time to upload them to YouTube. Oh my God! But I'm always way ahead of myself. Um, but what I was wanting to know is, so you've incorporated a nonprofit, you've got charitable tax status already, so you can accept donations, land and cash, I guess,
And cash to
and
help
provide
us with operations for sure.
cash
Yeah.
is clean. And
Yeah.
so, and then where are you? Do you have a board? Like, how is this? I've
Yeah,
had
we
some.
have a board. We have
Yeah,
a board.
on your
Uh,
board.
we have 5 members right now, and we're just in the process of opening it up to seek out some more board members. But we represent First Nations around here because it's like easier for us to get together. But our incorporation is federal, so it goes across the country.
Oh,
That's where we can accept donations from. And we're all grandmothers, except for one. She's a mom, a bit younger and very savvy with the tech, and that's what we need, you know. Um, so we're called Minowaki, which is good earth, and we're just developing. So, if people want to weigh in and suggest suggestions or ideas, we're open to that, But we have our website active at mnoaki.org. You able to see it, Joan? Oops. Where'd you go? I'm going to have to plug in. Hey, Joan, are you there?
I think I'm back. Yeah, I think my son-in-law, I hear the like a loader or something outside. We have our Starlink on a, what do you call those pallets?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he bumped it or something. I don't know.
Um,
Anyway, we're both back, and thanks for hanging in there to the guests. So where were you? I was asking you about your board.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I was mentioning that most of us are grandmothers. One of us, Sonia Maladecki, is she's the lawyer. She was in the corporate world, and she's actually a Ukrainian descent.
Okay.
And her spirit just couldn't take the collusion and corruption and the rest of it in the corporate world. So she quit that. She met a fellow from the Tahltan First Nation, Jerry Asp, who really inspired her.
I knew Jerry.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And together they formed Global Indigenous Development Trust. So they had been working with First Nations, not so many in Canada, but in the South American regions where things are really tough. Mm-hmm. And when I met her, I showed her a drawing I did of like a multiplex, but straw bale. And I was telling her that, okay, this thing could accommodate, this many people. But in my view, the right way for it to work is the whole backyard has to be developed for food production, like trees, berry bushes, gardens, food processing shed, and blah, 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 all of it, right? Wow. So then you can have a little settlement of people who can take care of each other and take care of themselves. Yeah. And I was also saying to her, the allocation or distribution of houses, it normally follows that track of, okay, there's a man and a woman and they have some kids, let's give them a house. Yeah. But that's the nuclear family model, and that wasn't our model. Our model was all a family, right? Mm-hmm. So I said the way I would want that multiplex populated is to give those units to the matriarch of a family and just let her populate it as she sees fit. Wow. Because that is going to change over time, right? And then succession can be brought in to the next female,
Huh.
head of the household.
Talk about that a bit. Talk about how you see our role as women and matriarchs
Well,
in.
yeah, that's what we have to reclaim. Like that's what we're trying to provide these resources for, and get those grandmothers back into the circles where they start talking about what's happening to our youth. What is this policy and that drug
Yeah.
infestation into our communities, and how can we give to our communities to help do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think that when we stand up and work together, link our arms and use our hearts and our experience, wisdom, and knowledge, we can actually help a lot.
Mm.
Our kids are crying out for help, I think.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
involved right now. I joined I don't know when we talked last, but I joined a firm, a new firm, Napoli Law Canada, Napoli School Law Canada, and we are involved in opioid litigation on behalf of First Nation governments and Indigenous peoples in Canada. We also have
Yeah.
another case for the municipalities because the Canadian government, provinces and territories have gone forward with Purdue and the Shackler family and are proposing a settlement that would completely leave out all Indigenous peoples in Canada and also any municipalities. So the firm I'm with is suing on behalf of both Indigenous peoples and municipalities. And so if you know any, if you have any connections, anybody listening has connections at municipalities, we're also looking to support municipalities. Or if your First Nation government wants to be a part of this work, then they should get in touch with me. But yeah, like the yeah,
How
we're
about individuals who've lost 10 years of their life to addiction to that and then
yeah,
managed to get past it? Like my
yeah,
son had a terrible time with it, but he did get past it. And now he's thriving.
yes, yes. When our children, I was just talking to what my daughter, one of my daughters today, and saying, "I'm so happy you're here. Like I'm so happy you're still here," because so many of our people can't say that.
Yeah.
They can't
Yeah.
say that.
I
Yeah.
know. My sister lost two
Oh my
two
goodness.
sons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love, but when you describe the idea of having multiplex housing with a matriarch uh, leading and guiding and loving the families in that space, that just gave me goosebumps.
Oh,
Oh,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
really.
These are the ideas we have to keep talking about and
Yeah.
propagating out there.
Or
That
even,
even came through in our encounter in Saskatchewan there at Saskatoon. We were
yeah.
talking about that too. Like the allocation of these houses, it's done all wrong according to how we live.
Oh, totally. Even if
Hmm.
you link that thinking, our indigenous thinking, to the apprehension of our children, which is, of course, still happening as a consequence of colonization. My husband and I fostered in his community for like, I don't know, 25 years, whatever, many, many, many children. And, I've always said that somebody should build little houses outside our big cabin, where the mom or mom and dad or whoever the birth parents are that need the support, then we eat communally one meal a day. We eat in
Oh,
the
that's
big,
a brilliant
we eat
idea.
in the big house, together. And so then you start to re-strengthen our indigenous ways of parenting and being
Exactly.
together in the context of family instead of
Yeah.
uh, European, or I don't want to offend anybody, but I don't know how to say it right. But instead of other people's cultures around parenting, where the nuclear family is in a little separate house over there, you know.
Yeah.
But even stronger, what you're saying is taking my thinking even further. That if we were going to do, everybody's doing these. What the hell's the name of that bill? C whatever C-92 or some bill right now with offering us to take over administering our own misery, actually, with CFS,
Yeah.
family services, so you can, where the oppressed become the oppressor, basically.
Yeah.
unless
It's
unless
happened here already.
yeah, unless
Yeah.
it results in solutions that are not from the mainstream, then, like I said, I know people are working in those systems. Our people, Indigenous people, love our people. They're doing that because they care. But they would probably be the first one if they could, that would say, no, we don't like doing this. We don't like doing this work the way we have to do it, you know.
Yeah,
But
I've seen people quit because you
could
just
you
can't.
imagine if there were housing like you're dreaming of and creating that would be with the matriarch of a family, then any children and grandchildren in that family that were in care, the whole family could be placed in the care of that matriarch.
Yes, wouldn't that make sense?
Holy
I would.
mackerel, that would be good.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
everybody would start to work together again and heal fractured families, and resources could be brought into that
Our
multi.
granny's got to flex, Joan. We got to flex. We got to stand and say, "This is how it's got to be."
Yeah.
We'll decide. When I saw how, policy always gets in the way, right?
Yeah.
The guys were saying at that meeting that National Building Code book is this thick now,
Yeah.
and having to follow it means the cost of one home could probably build 5 straw bale homes.
Wow.
And they have to spend it. They
Well,
have to follow the code.
how did you get around all the code in your community? You must have. Are you on a certificate of possession on the reserve?
Yes, I am. Yeah, my dad gave me one of those.
I just want to update people who don't know what that is. Okay. So under the Indian Act, Section 9124, within the Indian Act, the land is held collectively by the registered Indian band. Sorry about all these offensive words, but that's what's in the white law. And so the land is held in trust, by the registered Indian bands at the pleasure of the crown. We're moving away from ministerial approval on every single thing, but not so much. I'm kind of bitchy today, sorry. And then yeah, a little bit too real going on here, Joan.
It's really real, yeah.
But on 91, within that land tenure system, there is a opportunity to create certificates of possession that are then granted to individual band members. No, I don't, depending if they have a code, it's all really complicated, because there's a difference between being a Indian registered to a First Nation and an Indian registered Indian who's a member of the band. Because you can,
that's because of the C31, I guess. The people coming back.
Because of section when complicated. When we
the simple fact is we don't have enough land anymore.
No,
and we have the growing population, right?
But I wanted to explain to listeners, like, the point is that those people who end up with a certificate of possession, it's similar to white people off reserve who have a title at the pleasure of the crown. Fee simple title when you buy your
Fee
house.
Simple title, yeah.
Falkirk or Toronto or wherever you've bought your home, it's still at the pleasure of the crown, and so you own that like a white person, and then you can do what you want. And so your dad gifted you his certificate of possession on your reserve, and then you just were able to decide what you wanted to do. So it's not all bad. It's not all bad.
No, like they gave me a certain amount of money as a grant. That's what they used to do back then. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I spent most of it on my septic system, but then I went to my dad and he co-signed a loan for me to build the rest of it. But I got it all pretty much done for under 60,000, and I have 2 bedrooms, a full bathroom, and a utility room, and lots of space in the kitchen and living room.
Mm-hmm. So that's the same as the house. My husband, I helped, I cook and stuff and peel logs and stuff, but my husband built me a beautiful home in Barons River, where I'm from, and we don't have a certificate of possession. We just went walking on the reserve far out by the lake, and I said I want it here. And so we took the move. Well, I did ask some of the different elders, who used to live there. Did anybody used to live there? And it turned out that some ancestors in my bloodline used to have a fish camp in the summer there. And that was good. And and then we just went out with help of our cousins and family and other people from Barons River, and we got the logs. We just harvested our own logs. And then we built a home there, and you reminded me of it because we did it all for my dad, our dad, my brother and sister, our dad paid for the road to punch the road in because the band didn't have any money to help us with that. And I think he paid about $18,000 to punch the road in. Dad did that for us, and He also paid for one employee to work with my husband all the time. But we ended up building, I mean, my home had like old windows from other people's houses, and we just scrounged around, and
Yeah.
so we built our own home. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you did.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. And I love it. Living in one is like a different experience than living in a conventional house. And if I'm in somebody else's conventional house for too long, it's just like I get a little dissonant. It's just weird. Hotels and
So
everything like that.
what are the next steps like for your organization in the next 6 months, 1 year, 5 years? Where are you at? Let's wind this up.
We would really like some assistance from when we know that there's so many women in the Deadly Cookums group, which is the best thing ever. But we want to get some advice and some suggestions and some assistance with developing this grandmother governance that will offer as a model. When we have land to offer, we'll say, here's a model developed by many grandmothers. And if you follow this model, you will have, hopefully much success. Because it doesn't have to be modeled after what the colonial system has given us. It should come from our hearts and our experience and our ancestors. Because when you include what the ancestors knew, the ancestors come to help you. I personally call them sky grannies, and I give them all, credit for the amazing things that are happening in my life since I met them, and
Well, so maybe that's something we can talk about some more, because for the listeners who aren't aware, on December 12th, 2020, I had the inspired thought that I should start a private Facebook group called Deadly Cookums. And I thought, hey, I should do that. I know how to do that. That's how I can tell when it's not my idea. The thought comes in, and I either strongly disagree and I don't want to do it. It's causing me trouble. Or I think to myself, oh my God, that's a great idea. So I had that moment. That's a great idea. And then I created the group, and I invited, a few cookums that I know, a few grannies I know. And then it was amazing, Becky. Like the next day, there was like 100 women wanting to get in. The next day, there was another. And I was like, what the heck?
I know. I remember. It was amazing.
Yeah. And so we now have 25,500 members in our Deadly Cookums. And Ann Ball is still doing the most of the admin volunteer, and Sylvia Anderson.
Thank you, Ann.
I know,
Sylvia.
Right. I go in there the odd time because every day there's more women wanting to join the group. And the big thing about it is that I would say, like for the most part, like 99%, like we're self-policing. Like I tell the women, there's only one rule here: don't be an asshole. Because I know when I'm being an asshole.
And no men.
Yeah, no men. No, that's the other rule. And no men. So sometimes men will sneak in, and sometimes they use indigenous names, and it's hard to tell. But the women that are doing most of the admin, they go and look, and it's a lot of volunteer work. But maybe
it's a wonderful place to connect.
Yeah, maybe grandmother governance is an idea that we can get behind inside the Deadly Cookums and Aunties. And
I bet you there's lots of power for it in there. I just know there is.
I bet you.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk more about that offline and see what we can start to do.
Okay.
So let's start to wrap up. I usually close the same way as well. I'd like to give you, like, this is your time. Anything you didn't talk about or thought of or whatever, and then I'll do mine.
Okay. Well, I've got to get into another meeting right away because there's a Secure Indigenous Land Tenure Association conference coming up next week, and we're doing a little preparing. So I'd like to report on that when that's finished, and make sure I put the finished product in front of the Deadly Cookums so they can see where is that at, and where is our organization sit in relation to that, and how can we help others, and just wrap it all up for that.
Cool. Maybe we can do a podcast and then post the podcast into the Deadlies, because it would be there. It would be there for anybody to watch anytime, and then other people can learn too.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Joan. What a pleasure
No
and an
problem.
honor.
Like vice versa, they say. So for my closing, I'm really thankful that I know so many people. I've started telling people I have a PhD in visiting. I'm like doctor visitor. And so
Right on.
and then I also like I love humor, and so I like kego kichinendas okay, like don't take yourself too serious, don't think you're all
Exactly.
that, right? And so
Yeah.
that's like a foundational principle of our governance is not to take yourself so too seriously, and so I like to laugh, and I also have several addictions, and one of them is beaded earrings. And so I thought, well, I'm going to justify my addiction to beaded earrings by featuring somebody's earrings every week. So this week I'm wearing, I don't know if you can see them for people who are watching. You can hardly see
My
them.
glasses on.
Take it off, take it off.
To find a pair.
So it's a little footprint. Where am I going? Oh, there we go. There we go. I got it now. It's a little footprint.
Oh, very adorable.
Beautiful. That's Betty Ann Rohr
Orange.
on Facebook, and she's a deadly cookum.
Oh,
And she made these to honor the children that
the
are being
children.
discovered in unmarked graves now. And
Oh.
yeah, so I'm going to wear them when I ride my Harley on Saturday and hope they don't fly off.
Oh,
But yeah. Okay,
nice.
well, that's it for
Thank
this
you.
episode. I'm going to end it, and then you and I can say goodbye offline. All right. Thank you,
Okay.
everybody, for listening. Make sure you share this podcast to your own. Make sure you share this podcast to your own media, please. Thank you.
I have to.